Welcome to Freedom. This is today's edition of the Inter-University Debates on Civic Space TV. I am Phillip Muliisa. Today, the conversation is about the continuing wrangles in political parties in this beautiful country called Uganda, and we are asking, is it a sign of failure of multi-party politics in this country, Uganda? Now, joining me in that conversation is a panel of distinguished young people whom I'll give a chance to introduce themselves, share with us the beautiful and, gigantic CVs, and later we shall get in the show. And I should start from my extreme right. Lady, you're most welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, viewers. My name is Atukwase. I am a student of law, third year at Makerere University. And yes, I am a student that's starting to become passionate about human rights, international law, and I am very glad to be on this space today morning.
Thank you, Liz Atukwase. You're most welcome. You come from Western Uganda?
Yes.
Which district?
Bushenyi.
Bushenyi, you're most welcome on the panel today. Gentlemen.
Yes, please. Thank you very much, Mr. Philip. My name is Kityo Martin. I'm a law student from Islamic University in Uganda. Currently, I'm in my fourth year. I'm a student leader, and I'm a very keen person in the aspects of human rights, politics, and leadership. And I'm very glad to be here today on the show.
Kityo Martin, thank you so much. You're most welcome. Kityo tells me you're from Central Uganda.
Yes, please.
That is which district?
From Masaka district.
Oh, I was about to say the Nsenene district, but I understand recently they migrated to some other places. But you're most welcome.
Thank you very much.
Last but not least, yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys so much for joining us. My name is Nkalubo Oprah Blessed. I'm a first-year law student at Makerere University. I'm the vice president of the Children's Reference Group under UNICEF and Ministry of Gender. Very passionate about leadership, advocacy, public speaking, and debate. And I can't wait to dive into today's topic. I'm sure we really have a lot to discuss in regards to where our country is going.
Thank you, Nkalubo. You're most welcome, Central Uganda. Is that so?
It's a long background. It's quite a long story.
Please,
where I come from.
I understand, but I have today two ladies and one gentleman, and I must say, even in the entire room, we have more ladies than gentlemen. So civic space scores on that gender. So it's no longer equality now. I think gentlemen should now say we also want equality from civic space, but
yeah.
Lawyers from Western, from Central, from wherever, you're most welcome on this show. And political parties. When you study the journey of political parties in this country, it is a journey that dates way back in the 1930s. Talk about the formation of the Bataka Party, then fast forward the formation of the ANC, Ignatius Musazi, come to DP, then UPC, Kabakaeka, and move forward. Then you get things like UPM, CP around 1980, come to NRA that transited to NRMO. Then very many other political parties came to be formed in this country. First, before we get into the specifics of the conversation, I will need a view from the three of you. When you look at the political parties in this country, what is their status? What would you say about them as they are today? I'll start with you, lady at the extreme end.
What I think of political parties right now in Uganda?
Yes.
I think we are, honestly speaking, just wasting time to an extent, because it's like the parties are just for show and people are just passing time, fighting. It's not like they particularly stand for something. Maybe they actually stood for something when they first began, but right now it has all vanished, and that is where we are right now.
Thank you. Wow. We're just wasting time. What a statement to start with. Kityo.
Thank you very much. Well, to me, I think when we go back to the time, the period of the pre-independence period, realize that we have really moved the journey when we compare what is happening today currently. When you look at back then, the kind of struggles that were being available in the country, the political parties that were being instituted or created were based on ethnic or tribal sentiments and a kind of tribal interests. And that was the kind of identification that was available in the political parties that were being instituted at the time. When we look at the political parties at the time, you can't run away from the tribal identities that are available in these political parties. But then we are seeing a shift. We are seeing ideological shifts from back then, pre-independence, and then post-independence. There's a growth that we are seeing that wasn't there back then, pre-independence. So I think the status of political parties in Uganda is on a steady progress. We are seeing some change, whereas we are having some backlogs here and there. You can say that we have at least moved a milestone.
Thank you. Steady progress. We are seeing some change. Council Oprah.
All right. I would like to talk in the regards to the mandate of these political parties. We do know that we have a multi-party system of democracy in Uganda, but then despite the fact that we have so many political parties, over 11, we then have to sit down and ask what is the mandate of these political parties and do they deliver on that mandate. So when we have a political party that actually delivers, that is when we can say political parties are actually doing the role that they should be playing. But when we look into today's status quo, it's what maybe opposition is supposed to be doing, because that is really where the multi-party politics is, because there are very many opposition parties and one government party. So when we look at what opposition is supposed to be doing, what is their mandate? What are they supposed to be doing for the Ugandans who do not agree with the government? What is supposed to be their stance? We find that in that line, currently in our country, the opposition is hurting the people it's supposed to represent. It has fallen far back from its mandate. It is not doing what it's supposed to be doing. And those are gaps that we really need to fill if we are going to be able to take our country where we want to be. Because opposition or political parties, in a sense, are supposed to be able to check the power in government. But if they are checking each other and checking their own, then we have challenges. And this leaves the layman in a very unaware position. So that's really where we are.
Thank you so much. Political parties are checking each other instead of checking government. I think that stands out. And is it what they should be doing? The court is in your hands. Now, ladies and gentlemen and ladies, you see, if I bring you quick to where we are, just for purposes of basis and facts, today we have very many political parties in the country, but of course many of them are not as such active. When you look at the major political parties, the National Resistance Movement, today you have within the NRM, you have the Central Executive Committee as the topmost organ of the party. Then you have organs within the Youth Council, the Women's League. Recently you have something called the Yellow Youth Movement, and many other voices that keep saying, there is something wrong, we do not agree with this, we do not, we have a group called the Rebel MPs of NRM, and they are within the party. Come to the FDC, long time, presidential contending and leadership party of the country at the opposition. Today you have factions within the party. You have one that is now called the Katonga faction, led by Dr. Kizza Besigye, and you have a faction at Najjanankumbi, the headquarters, led by Engineer Patrick Amriatoboy. Come to the NUP, you have today people who are saying they are pro-principle, the party president, the Honorable Robert Kyagulanyi. You have people who say, we are there's a rift between the principal and one of his deputies, if I may, maybe his former deputies, because as I speak he was suspended, the Honorable Matthias Mpuga, and they say we are pro-Matthias Mpuga. Come to the UPC, You have a faction that is pro-Jimmy Akena and a faction that is pro-Joseph Ochieno, a faction that is in a working relationship with the NRM, and another that says, no, we cannot do that. The DP, you also have factions, one that is working with the NRM and another that is saying we cannot work with the NRM. I'll start with you, Kityo. Why do we find ourselves in positions of contention as political parties, as political leaders, internal, leave alone the external forces, internally? Amoriat cannot agree with Besigye, Mao cannot agree with Lulu Mebaiga, Matthias Mpuga cannot agree with Robert Chagulanyi. What is the challenge inside political parties?
Thank you very much. Building upon Oprah's point, I think at some point, these internal checks and balances are really very necessary. Because if we are to move towards a democratic shift, which recognizes leaders who are accountable, leaders who are transparent, we need those checks even within ourselves, the parties themselves, internally, before even reaching the other posts externally, they themselves must have that internal check and balance system. So when we look at the current status of the political parties and the wrangles that they are facing, as you have rightly mentioned, realize that, yes, the checks and balances must be there, the internal checks and systems. However, they might end up getting caught up in the wrong battles, in the wrong fights, and then they lose focus on what they should actually achieve. Basically, these internal wrangles and internal battles should not blindside them on what the goal is, their major goals. What is the mandate of the party? You are the opposition and you're seeking for solidarity, you're seeking for unity amongst people. But within yourself, you have even failed to establish that kind of unity. So, whereas these checks and balances are there, I think these parties should not lose that kind of major goal, that kind of major vision. So, this has both a bright and a dark side to it. To me, I think on one end, it's a glimmer of hope that we are seeing that now leaders are really aware and the people are becoming civically and politically involved. They're trying to check their leaders. If you're a leader, are you really accountable? Are you transparent? Are you carrying out the mandate that we entrusted you with? Things like that. However, on the dark side, it might blindside them, as I've rightly pointed out. It might blindside them towards the major goal. They are looking, these are opposition parties, and they have major goals of effecting change. Well, if they are caught up in these battles, they might lose sight of what their major goal is. And mind you, the other party, the ruling party, is actually strategizing, and it is actually just getting more strength. If these parties don't actually realize that they have a bigger goal, then they are doomed for downfall.
Thank you. They are doomed for downfall. Council Elizabeth, when you listen to, for example, the National Unity Platform, the rift started with money. Someone received some monies and the party did not agree with him, as we speak today, on suspension. When you go to the FDC, still money. Someone at the leadership received some money. A certain group did not agree with the money and how it came into the party. As we speak, you have two parties within a party. Is money such a big challenge in the leadership of this country?
I think money is a very big driving factor in life generally. Now I have a friend who likes to say that the measure of success, the uniform measure of success in life is money. So eventually everyone gets drifted away by.
Do you agree with that view?
Do I? I think it is a uniform measure of success.
Okay.
Yes, though success might vary. What you call success cannot be my success, obviously. But I think the money issue, they should always solve it within themselves, because it is not looking nice on the outside for the people who actually support the party. If I'm saying that I support maybe FDC or I support NUP, but I'm seeing the people that I sort of like follow with one heart, and I'm like, this is my party, but they are divided and it is all about money. I think that is just selfish interest to start with. And I don't think money should really divide people to that extent. It's something that's
You see,
too small.
that sounds like a contradiction to me. When you say the fundamental measure of success is money,
Yes.
and you say it is something small that everyone is looking for success.
Everyone is
Therefore,
looking
if
for
this is the standard, they have a reason to use whichever energies to fight for this success, not so.
Yes, but it also depends where your money comes from. You cannot say that you're going to go and steal it and become rich, and then that is how you're going to say you're successful. Everyone will view as successful. It won't make sense. But if these guys want to fight about money in their parties, it is going to break all of them, because eventually maybe another person gets money and still within the same party, and then we still have a third division within the party. It won't make sense.
Thank you. Council Nkalubo, I want to engage you still on the money question. You see, usually the conversation is the NRM is mismanaging money. Government people are sharing monies the way they want. The speaker, when you look at recently, we had something called the Uganda Parliament exhibition, and you saw how the speaker spends money, how MPs are bribed day in, day out with 100 million, 50 million, 40 million in a sequence. When you talk about the presidency, the monies that go to the presidency, the budget, the classified expenditures, and so on. So the conversation has always been, oh, the NRM government is mismanaging money. And we are the opposition. We want to come in and make sure Ugandan money is actually spent well. There is value for money. Unfortunately, today the conversation is leader A in this political party. For example, if I say the Honorable Matthias Mpuga receives money from the Parliamentary Commission to the tune of 500 million shillings, the party leadership is saying you shouldn't have taken that money. The FDC, the Honorable Nandala Mafabi, has some money for the party. The other faction is saying, no, we cannot use that money. We do not know where you got it from. Actually, we know you got that money from State House. Are these people, in terms of money, are they ready to take over leadership of this country?
Okay, I want to answer that question on 3 fronts. The first front is that, as I started, I was talking about the mandate of political parties, and I think it is very important that when people are joining political parties, what happens in Uganda here is that people join with not with ideas of service, or with ideas, because you see every political party has like a vision and a mission that they want to front. But the people who join those parties come with different reasons. Yeah, some it's popularity, some it's money, some it's a high office. You know, people come with different reasons. Everyone wants to, you know, front their own agenda, and they all find themselves in one mix. And this goes back to the heads of these different political parties. They should be able to teach these different people who come into their parties. Because, for example, like National Unity Platform, it was a young party with a lot of momentum, and everyone wanted to join it because that was the way they saw themselves probably reaching the climax of the politics of this country. It was more of a vehicle, but yet it stood for certain principles. So where the party leadership is not able to teach their individuals their principles and stick on their principles, it then becomes very problematic. And that is when you will see some factions, because they came in with maybe a money issue, they want to stick to the money.
Do these parties have principles?
They do. I'm certain they do. But some of these things may not be known to us as the public, but the fundamental heads of these parties know their principles, and they should be able to teach that to their members.
You see,
their members
if you allow me, when I take you back to 1952, the Uganda National Congress, Ignatius Kangave Musazi, he formed a political party, of course, with his colleagues, Abeka Kachama Mayanja and the likes. And he says, we want to fight for the independence of this country. Later, it broke up to create UPC and a couple of other small groups. but the goal remained independence of the Republic of Uganda. What is the goal, for example, of the National Unity Platform, of the Forum for Democratic Change, of which other political parties? Mention.
Okay. I trust that they do have visions or goals as parties. But for example, like the National Unity Platform, they have made it clear their goal is one, to remove the president. You see, but one in regards to this issue, which is my second point in regards to your question, was is the issue of the fact that there is money, there are corruption issues, both in all these political parties, and it's all about the money. But now, what do we see? We, as Ugandans, I believe many Ugandans are in shock because of the way NUP handled the situation. And my comrade Elizabeth was saying that this should be things that are handled within the party. And why is she saying that they should be handled within the party? It is because it's something that we have seen. NRM, which is really the longest standing party, has been able to handle its conflicts within itself. And these are issues that really never even come out. We saw the issue in regards to the Speaker of Parliament. We saw how the NRM handled the issue, and it's starting to phase out. Before we know, there will be a new conversation on board. So there's a way NRM handles its sorts of scandals, its sorts of issues that deal with money in a way that it creates a ground on which it can then move on to really its mandate for Ugandans and bringing about service delivery. So it's able to close those gaps and then go to the next stage, which may be something that NUP is not, that's not the strategy that maybe the National Unity Platform uses. So that is a shock to Ugandans, that the party president will go all out publicly and state that, oh, I am suspending my deputy president on this ground and this ground. It is a shock to us as Ugandans because we have never seen an outright condemnation of corruption by our leaders. So when somebody is doing something different, we are then shocked. But we should ask ourselves that in a country in a country where we've had corruption, corruption issues or issues of stealing government funds, embezzlement, and they have been handled secretly. What have been the benefits? What has that impact brought onto general service delivery? Have we seen a change? Have we seen, because the NRM handles its issues secretly, then we have seen better service delivery in this front and in this front and in this area?
Yes, indeed, and I wanted to engage on that particular issue because you say the NRM handled, for example, the speaker's issue internally and it is phasing out. Does that therefore make it right for the speaker to behave that way? After all, her party will handle the matter maturely?
It does not. But remember, this is the ruling party, and this is the way it behaves. It's not only for the Speaker of Parliament. We've had so many issues of corruption by even other people within the party.
Oh, corruption is a standard in the NRM?
It is. That is well known. It's a public secret, if I may state it that way. But the way it is handled has been the same, and even the service delivery has completely remained the same. It is still poor for majority of Ugandans. But we see that now when the National Unity Platform, which wants to be which wants to take away the government, when it brings a new stance or a new way of tackling this issue, which we have not yet known, which is really alien to us as Ugandans, we then feel, how do they do such a thing? It is disrespect to the Honorable Mathias Impuga, you see. But this is a young party that really fronts the people and cares about what the people go through. So when its fronting is public, then really that becomes problematic, and we may say we have internal challenges here and there. But I personally feel like, let us see where this publicization of corruption and outright condemnation leads us as a country, and maybe we can get to a better place.
Thank you. Kityo, you see, excuse me, She mentioned something so interesting. The NRM manages its issues internally. We've seen the FDC managing them publicly. We've seen the NUP managing them outrightly public. What is failing these other political parties from managing their issues internally?
Thank you very much. Well, like she has rightly noted and you have pointed out, it is very right to hold leaders accountable. Because in the first place, a leader is holding power and carrying out their duties in the trust of the public. So when we reach an aspect of, to the step of accountability, why should we then keep that a secret? Why should we handle those matters internally? I mean, it is the public that entrusted you with this, put you there out there in office. Whatever activity you carry out, whatever duty you carry out, must be scrutinized publicly. And that's why we are seeing that people within the system itself are getting fed up. And that's why we are seeing whistleblowers leaking all these documents, showing unnecessary spending. And that has culminated the Uganda Parliament exhibition because of such things. I mean, people are realizing that there's a need for that change. And they're tired of that kind of status quo of dealing with things internally. So for these other parties that are not...
So if I understand you well, you then say that it is better if, for example, calling out on Matthias Mpuga, calling out on the allegations, calling out on the allegations on the Honorable Nandara Mafabi, or any other person that allegedly took some monies, it should be public.
Thank you very much. For that aspect, it is important to gauge which kind of matters actually should go out to the public. If there are personal matters, in very, very personal matters, no need of those matters being ousted to the public. But then this is a matter that is in line with your public duties as a leader. These are monies, a taxpayer's money. You go close to 500 million and you're receiving this maybe as a gratuity. People have to question, why are you being given this money? Where is it going to? How? Whereas these internal discrepancies should not be shared out, and we should gauge which kind of things we should be shared. We should know that anything concerning public duties should be out there in the public and should be scrutinized. And then back to your question where you said what is failing these other parties from catching on the trend of putting their issues out there publicly. My thinking is that maybe these other parties haven't yet adapted to that ideological shift. They still think that they do not have to share their things externally and they are comfortable in their zones. However, the democracy in Uganda is kind of changing. And that is why she pointed that we are getting shocked when we see such things. Indeed, it is shocking. Back then, we would hardly see such things because we realize that it is even that trend. It is normal to eat money when those guys go to government. And one honorable, rest in peace, he noted that even among his slogans as he was campaigning that munondi nanging and such things, such sentiments show that people have a goal that for them they just want to go to office, they have their interests.
And that is where I ask, when you say that democracy is changing and people need to be aware, is that transition in democracy complementary to the citizens of this country? Look, you are saying you still have a member of parliament, the late Honorable Katolobwam, I guess is the one you referred to,
Yes.
and indeed people voted for him. He won, landslide victory. You have a people, majority of our population, I think we still have about 40% illiterate population, something like that. Now, when you get such information and you put it in the public, where you have a citizen who is going to a health center and there is no medicine, who is going to a school and there is no teacher, or the teacher is there but has not been paid, or maybe there is no chalk in that classroom, who is traveling on a road that has, recently they are called swimming pools, I hear, and something like
Oceans.
that, gullies, oceans, things of the sort. Now, you are sending this kind of sensitive information to this citizen who has not studied much, has not, grasped the concept of reacting with his emotions, but also bringing in the aspect of emotional intelligence and how to manage, extreme factors. Do you see this population managing this information? Can't you cause an uprising in that population?
Thank you very much. Well, the kind of shift that is happening in this country does not require one to be literate or illiterate. Regardless of your economic background, regardless of your education level, the effect is felt. Before, when we used to push, for example, the late such leaders to government, maybe some people were not conscious of the decisions they were making. They didn't realize that this was going to backfire and hit them back. When you go to a hospital and there's no medicine, you go to the hospital and in the aisles people are just dying on the floors because of lack of personnel to work on them. They realize this later, that this comes from the decisions they make. Sending such leaders will then backfire. And that is why you're seeing that the public is basically touched by these reports that are coming out by whistleblowers, that this is how your money is being spent. In a day, a person is spending such and such monies. Yet when you go to the hospital, they will tell you that, you know what, we don't have medicine for you. And yet you pay taxes. You're paying high prices for goods, products, and everything. And at the end of the day, you're not getting the services. At the end of the day, you're going to walk on a muddy tarmac road. It is mud with potholes everywhere. You know?
I like how you put that, muddy tarmac road. Very interesting. So, thank you. I want to bring you Elizabeth in this conversation. You see, when you get, for example, a Speaker of Parliament, some documents that came out, commissioners of Parliament, members of Parliament, there's a member of Parliament who allegedly was in 3 places at the same time and had gone for benchmarking for this country. There's a journey someone went to, I think even including the speaker. At some point she had traveled to about 4 destinations in the same week, and one of the journeys was supposed to take a week and another about 3 days, but these are allegations, get me right. There is another allegation that she was being paid, the monies she got from Parliament was to the tune of about 400 million weekly, and many other things that came out. Let's talk morality. Is this greed? Is this theft? How would you describe this morally?
I think it is all greed, but I don't think there's any Ugandan who would do any better. That is a conversation I always have. Everyone sits back and says, oh my God, our leaders are spending our money, eating taxpayers' money, they are squandering it. But I don't think there's, out of every 10 Ugandans, I don't think there's more than 3 who would do any better than she's doing.
And if you allow me, political scientists usually say that the leadership of a country, of particular society for that matter, is a true reflection of the people in that society or country. Does that then say, when I read what you say, actually what the speaker does, or maybe it's Minister X or Honorable Y, is actually what every one of the 48 million Ugandans would do on a normal day?
It is what the majority would do on a normal day. They just lie to us and they say, hey, look, vote for me. I'll make sure that maybe my constituency, you have better roads. You have all these good hospitals. They come telling us all these nice looking things. Well, they look good and they look like, yes, they'll probably do them. But when they go there, they'll not do any better. It's like the road where I stay at home. Like, we used to have a good road in Jenny Pharmacist's time. True. But now it is like what he said, muddy tarmac.
Wow.
You can't pass there. You can't. Yet we actually had a good tarmac road. They instead just removed all the tarmac and we are just having a dusty road, complete dust. I don't think there's anyone who will do any better. And I think if we are to have a better leadership, I think it will start with the people who are in the country themselves. It will start with us.
Thank you so much. Council Nkalubo Oprah, from what he says, it takes me to something called grooming. The kind of leaders we have today, the members of parliament, the ministers, councillors, chairpersons of districts, public servants, all these leaders. You know, Uganda has about 2 million elective positions. 2 million, a population of 45, 48 million people. Then we have public servants, we have leaders in the private leaders in businesses, organizations, and so on. How are we grooming our leaders? If this is what we have, is the grooming process one we can trust?
All right, in regards to the grooming process, I will gladly tell you, Ugandans are well groomed. They know the difference between good and bad. And they also know the consequences of bad things and the consequences of good things. And majority of them, especially the young leaders, really want to be the change. They want to make sure that they produce good results for themselves, for their families, and even for the country at large. But where is the problem? The problem is at the helm of leadership, at the helm of the leadership of this country. Because everyone, even when we are young people, we all have aspirations. We all have issues of, I want to see this change. I grew up in this way and I want to be able to better my society in such and such a way. But when the opportunity is availed and you're able to then rise up to those ranks of leadership, you find yourself in a tricky position, in a position whereby you came with thoughts of change and now you are being diverted by money. The president wants to pass a proposal in parliament and they are giving out 40 million and you really need this money. And it is just one wrong that then opens the door to other wrongs. And being a system where this is openly accepted and it is openly done, you find yourself easily engulfed in that trap. And why am
you keep talking about the system that accepts this. Who is accepting this?
This is as I've been telling you, this is an evil that comes from the helm of leadership, from the president and then right down to the grassroots.
The president accepts this kind of corruption.
He
theft,
does.
robbery.
And you will see this if we are to, I'll give you a comparison. We have seen countries like Tanzania. Before Magufuli, Tanzania was as bad as Uganda currently. But when there was a change in leadership, we saw that country rise to middle income status. So when we have the right leaders at the helm, these leaders then if we choose the right leaders, we then choose leaders who are able to mitigate spending, to allocate money in the right places, to put able ministers in right positions. Because when you put a right person in the right position, they then deliver well. And if you have an accountability and transparency program within your political agenda or within your leadership mandate, then we have better leaders. We have seen countries that are very accountable, even for their members of parliament, accountable in terms of what shareholders does this member of parliament have, how are their bank accounts. So people know, and when there's when this leader then has, you see, so it comes from like the top leadership. When the leadership is stable, its people are stable, and even the populace gets used to a leadership that is accountable, and they too become accountable. Because when we have a leader, it's like in a family. If you have your father who is, always drunk, who doesn't care, this and that, as a child you may feel like this is bad, but you find yourself in the same route your father took because you did not get a better example. But families that have fathers who are able to be better figures, you find that even the child, even if they had bad habits, they then slowly transition into the figure that they were able to see from an exemplary leadership. So that is something that we are missing in our country. Unless we get formidable leadership that is able to scrutinize all these issues, we still have a lot that's lacking.
If you allow me make a summary of what you say, do you then say that we have a wrong president, we have a wrong prime minister, we have a wrong speaker, we have a wrong chief justice, members of parliament, councillors, and so on?
I am not saying that they are wrong people. What I'm trying to say is that the things that they do, the things that they condone, are the wrong things, and there needs to be a serious check, and not just for them as leaders, but the structures in place have to be changed to then make them effective. Because if you just allow money to be oozed out, you print cash notes, and you deliver money all the way from Bank of Uganda to bribe a person to follow a certain position, and this is accepted in our country, then you leave a gap for other sorts of corruption to come in from all these different angles. So we need a party leadership that can check these structures, that can make them very stringent, that people even fear to be called corrupt.
Thank you. And indeed, very many people should fear to be called corrupt in this country called Uganda, and by extension, the continent of Africa. Gentlemen and ladies, thank you so much for that amazing submission. The Inter-University Debates takes a very short break, and we shall be right back.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media, or to access and use computers, other electronic devices and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
You are still on Uganda's leading freedom platform, the Civic Space TV, and this is the Inter-University Debates. I am Phillip Muliisa. Today, the conversation is around political parties, the wrangles that continue to happen in our political parties, old, middle-aged, and new, and we're asking, is this an indicator for the failure of multi-party democracy in this country? Now, joining me in that conversation is a panel of distinguished young people. I have Council Nkalubo Oprah, I have Mr. Kityo Martin, Council still, and Council Elizabeth. Gentlemen and ladies, where we left off, we are really talking about things that were quite painful, but facts in this country. And when you listen to such, we have very many leaders, but I want to speak to the young leaders since we are young people here. You have youth councillors at everything, village, parish, sub-county, district. You have youth MPs, you have youth ministers, you have youth, very many positions. You have the National Youth Council somewhere, you have the Uganda National Students Association somewhere. And the reason I mention this, in the many years that have passed, young people, students, youth leaders were known to be the leaders of radical changes in the systems of their countries, including the leaders we have presently. When you look at President Museveni, in his student years, President Museveni, Julius Nyerere, in his student years, wonderful leader, Kenneth Kaunda, Jomo Kenyatta, Ignatius Musazi, Milton Obote. These were amazing people as students, as young people, and no wonder the things they did, they led to the independence of all these countries. When you look at people like Nelson Mandela, Pixley, Isaac Aseme, talk about across Africa, these were young leaders who led liberation movements, who led guerrilla warfares. Robert Mugabe in Zimbabwe, Rhodesia, then Southern Rhodesia. These are people who did amazing work as young people. Today, we have very many young people. The population of Uganda is to the tune of about 78% young people. Kenya, Tanzania, young people everywhere. Unfortunately, these young people are allowing wrong things, like you said, wrong things, the corruption, the bribery, the nepotism, the fighting in political parties to happen. Our roads are bad, we are silent. No chalk in schools, we are silent. The hospitals are down, we are silent. We have an underground hospital at Lubowa, the young people are silent. Why is it the case, if I start with you, Wilson? What is happening with young people?
True. Like you've mentioned, truly a moral compass exists for leaders. And we know what is right and what is wrong. And like you've pointed out, there is inactivity, a failure to take a step. And I wouldn't blame it so much on the young leaders, like you've mentioned, because in some instances you realize that some of them are incapacitated. But these leaders are actually doing something wherever they are, in whatever capacity they can. Some are using social media activism. These are all ways of trying to voice out, whereas they may not go out to the streets and pick up pangas and start, fighting against a ruling party. They are doing some acts. Some are writing. Some are voicing out through poems, through music. There's been some activism. I wouldn't downplay all their efforts, whereas they seem like they are futile, but at least there is. And I think that they are moving towards the right direction based on the contextual circumstances that are happening in Uganda.
Thank you. Elizabeth, young people, recently there are a couple of things that take attention. If you have data and TikTok, you can easily be on TikTok for the next 3 hours. Then before you know it, there's a football match, Arsenal versus Manchester United. Then before you know it, there's a new movie, Netflix. And these are things that interest young people. Are they so interesting that they have stopped young people from paying attention to the things that actually affect their lives directly?
I think I'll take it from the social media, the TikTok and everything. Yes, they are interesting, but I think there's always a stage where you outgrow them, or you get something else that you attach to that makes sense to you that will take up your time. Personally speaking, I removed TikTok from my phone because it was taking too much of my time. It was no longer interesting, and the only thing I now use on my phone is Twitter, and I think YouTube, just because it passes a little bit of my time. But I think it is the reason why young people are not interested in the things that are affecting them yet is because they are, I think, their minds are not yet brought into what is really affecting them. Like, they are blocking out everything else that's affecting them, and they are opting to go for the things that entertain them, and they are saying, no, politics, leadership, not my thing.
If you allow me, politics, leadership, not my thing. That takes me to the education we have as young people. When you go to your primary school, secondary school, to the university, to the institution, wherever you be, what we are taught, is it the right content that should guide this young person into being a responsible and civically competent individual to contribute to the growth of his nation, in your view?
Education, I think what we are being taught is just to guide our careers, nothing else. There is little to nothing that is going to drive you politically. Usually what drives someone's political what drives someone to get involved in politics is just their love, or maybe something that they have seen that affects them, and they're like, I need to take up a leadership position to remove this because it affected me. But it is nothing to do with education.
And
totally.
I think I should pick your views, the three of you. Recently, most, if not all, universities have banned political party-based politics at the institutions. If I mention Makerere, if I mention recently Chambogo still has a little bit, but it is also being drawn down. Universities like Kabale University, political but party-based politics. In the days when you talk to these senior people, they told you when you reported at the university while you're doing your registration, there would actually be a tent for the NRM, a tent for DP, a tent for UPC, and you are asked to go and sign up for any of the political parties. It's non-existent. Do you think it's affecting the activity of young people in politics today?
May I?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Number one, I will approach this in broadly two aspects. Like you've pointed out, the system itself is trying to put barriers towards producing politically and civically active youth. First of all, we had political, I think it was a political education in our secondary sometime back. I had the opportunity to study it for some time. But then after a while, it was scrapped off the syllabus. Next thing you know is within the university institutions, like you pointed out, for example, where I come from at IU Kampala, partisan politics is not accepted. And such things stem from the education system itself and our society. There are various barriers that lead to a blockage of producing civically and politically active youth. Another aspect aside from the system is the problem is within we ourselves. To quote one A.F. Mpanga, he said, not until we develop a central nervous system where all of us feel for each other, we can't have the Uganda that we have. And my interpretation of this is that not until I feel for a political prisoner who's out there, who has spent a year in prison without even appearing in court, then I will not know the kind of struggles that are happening in Uganda currently. Because I'm home, I can take my coffee, take my milk, have my bread, then I'll survive for the next day. You cannot have an understanding of what the context is. You cannot have an understanding of what the context is not until you go to the hospitals and realize that people are dying in the aisles of hospitals without medicine, without anyone attending to them. So I think we should actually learn to teach ourselves on how to feel for others. Whereas you're not in a situation, try to put yourself in the shoes of that situation and try to feel what that person would have felt. Those persons who are battered when they try to maybe riot, when they try to assemble, it is their freedom. But when they try to assemble, they are battered. They are just beaten. They are tear gassed. Not until we put ourselves in such a contextual situation, then we cannot have that shift that we are looking for in our democracy.
Thank you. Are you a member of any political party?
No.
You're not?
Yes, please.
Are you?
No, no.
And yes. Oh, what a message. Thank you. If I come to you, Council Oprah Nkalubo, multi-party politics in this country, when you talk about it, much as we had it in the past history, the most recent rising to this phenomena is 2005. You have a referendum. Ugandans agreed to go multi-party. 2006, we have a first election that has many political parties after very many years, about more than 20 years of single-party rule in this country. 20-something years after 2005, how would you score our prevalence of multi-party democracy as a country?
Okay, in regards to this question, we have to see that we've had a multi-party system with the same government all these years. And therefore, if we look at multi-party system then and multi-party system now, there's really no big difference, because even at that time, when we look at the first election in 2006, we can see the sort of infringement that came upon the multi-party system. Yes, you are trying to exercise your right of democracy, but how free is that right? How fair is that right? Because the essence of multi-party system is to promote democracy, is to get views of the entire population, because not the entire population will really side with the government. That is why you will have this party, independence, if for that matter, you see. So you'll have all these different factions. But what do we see with the multi-party system that we had both now and then? And that's why I'm saying that I really cannot score it now, because it has been the same. It is filled with so much unfairness. It is not a free space for everyone to engage fairly. There are some people who will engage fully, some who will engage halfway, and others who will completely be denied or banned from participating.
You know, there is a line of thought, and this is backed by a couple of statements from some leaders in the NRM, that the NRM allowed for multi-party politics to start in this country, but they did not believe in it, and therefore they are still interested and contribute to running the movement system the same way it was before. Do you agree to that?
I think that's something that we see that's even taking shape in our country today, because as we are looking, and as I've told you, it's not a fair ground for everybody to play in. And this movement system, because of age, we see that you have to prepare for the future. But even in the way the current government is preparing for a transition, is showing us that they want to still have they still want to have the same bond taking on the country. So
how are they preparing?
We can see these things all over. You know, we call them public secrets, because but then it's very clear. We can see what is it called now? Patriotic League. We can see it. What would you say? It's not a political party per se, but it's a sort of movement, right? And it's preparing for that transition of power. We can even see in the current cabinet reshuffle, one that is preparing for a change in power. We can see that a serving army commander, a serving soldier, takes part in politics, in rallies. And these are things that we as Ugandans, we see them, but we see this. But when an opposition member then makes a rally, who actually has the right in the law, who has been given that mandate, and they do try to carry out a rally, the things that come from that direction are death, tear gas, injuries, police. That is what comes. But then what comes in an unfair manner from a soldier who is playing politics is something civic, is something which people do not even condemn. And that is a really big problem. And that is what really our multi-party politics is like. It is not a fair ground. And therefore we cannot even measure that, oh, it has increased or it has decreased. There is really no stance on which we can measure, because we've had the same government, a government that has been playing the same way, that has been doing things the same way for all political players.
Thank you. Elizabeth, was Uganda ready for that 2005 referendum? Was Uganda ready to have multi-party politics at the time?
I think Uganda might have been ready then, but I think everything else changed along the way, because different people had different ideologies. Yes, when they were starting, they were bringing in different ideas, the kinds of things they'll do for people, service delivery, want change. All these things were being put on board back then. But I think they have all lost sight of what they actually first wanted. So I think they were ready, but I think now we are just caught up in the middle of nowhere.
Wow, thank you. Kityo, you see, there's a line of thought that says, given the African setting, traditionally we are feudalists. You have kings then who are never challenged, chiefs who are never challenged. They say Ugandans, and by extension Africans, are still stuck in that mode of leadership. You have a president, you have a member of parliament, you have a university chancellor, you have a public servant whose mind thinks feudalistic, gets in this position, doesn't want to be challenged, wants to be there for eternity, and if in any case his motto is replaced by a son or a daughter or something like that. What's your view of that?
Thank you very much. True, we opted for the multi-party system, but I don't want to call it a multi-party system because it is de facto actually a single party system based on the trend that has been happening in Uganda. It is de jure as per the law. Our constitution promises a multi-party system and all that, but then the facts show otherwise. What is happening in Uganda? We have political dominance of only one single party and all that. And an aspect of the feudalistic view and all that, entrusting only one party and all that, I think it is necessary to some point to have leaders, because not everyone will be leading the forefront. We need to have someone there leading. Africans are not necessarily stuck in that kind of our leader is not answerable, like our leader shall not be cautioned on anything, shall not be questioned, shall not be probed on anything. No, I think we have already shifted from that extent. And the facts show what is happening in Uganda, that people are becoming involved like in whatever is happening. There's nothing like, my leader, I won't do anything that goes against the wishes of my leader. When you do something wrong, trust the public to stand up and speak about it. I think there's a shift.
What impact do we see? Because the public recently was talking in the Uganda Parliament exhibition. As we talk today, there is another exhibition. Is it data theft exhibition or something like that? Ugandans are talking, but what's the impact?
Well, there is certainly an impact. And I want you to notice, just after the Uganda, or in the midway of the Uganda exhibition parliament, we had an official communication from the parliament handle, the X handle, the official X handle of the parliament, trying to address the expenditures that were being leaked in the public. They were trying to explain the channels to which this money was going to, whether rightful or not, but it shows that there is some kind of pressure that it puts on the leaders, on the party, whichever party is ruling.
You also have a speaker who said he does not respond to rumors on social media.
Well, she doesn't respond to them, but she made sentiments trying to shift the blame towards the homosexuals, whereas she was trying to put it that way. She responded. That shows that she was trying to respond to a significant cause, and she realized that this is a cause that people cared about.
Is homosexuality such a big deal for the Ugandan populace?
It depends on the contextual bit. It depends. Based on our moralistic background as the peoples of Uganda, these are people who did not believe in such values, and you accept the kind of background they come from. That is why you saw that the public, the larger public, was met with greater support for the anti-homosexuality bill and act. But I don't think it is right to shift the blame even where it is not necessary. For example, you're being probed about the expenditures or the gratuities that you're receiving, and then always shift the blame to things that don't actually seem to fit in the context. So I don't think it is always contextually relevant to affix certain social issues to where they don't fit.
I mean, you people, something stands out, and I have no right for an opinion, unfortunately, where we are, but if I had one, there's something that comes out. If the speaker, for example, has a budget of 13 billion shillings per year, deputy speaker 11 billion, the presidency, to the tune of, is it about 640 something, up there, billion shillings. Then it comes with supplementaries. The speaker needs this kind of money, the president needs this ministry needs this. When you go to our ministries today, a minister has a convoy, permanent secretary convoy, a director of something, a director information convoy, director legal convoy, director human resource convoy. This kind of expenditure, we fuel these cars, government buys these cars, we give these people airtime, health insurance, education for their children as government. How sustainable is this kind of expenditure for the government of Uganda?
Okay, in that regard, it is for the government that we have in power today, that is like its oxygen. It needs that to keep on moving, because that is the only way you are going to retain power.
Oprah, you said oxygen.
Yes, I did.
How so?
because you realize this is a government that needs bribery, that needs embezzlement, that needs woodwinking to keep in power. If these people's desires are not meant to, if their egos are not, in one way tamed, then the government is going to lose its power. So it needs people who are tameable. And as we mentioned at the start of this conversation, is that money is one of these driving forces. Protection is one of these driving forces. Having a sense of security for your future, for your children, in the position that you are, is really what Ugandans need currently. They will not look at the general picture of how other Ugandans are suffering as long as they are okay. And with that selfish mindset, and with a leader who knows how best to fit into their sentiments, it then becomes very problematic, because you realize in other governments, in other countries, these are things which are not condoned at all, you see. But you ask yourself, why would a person, you're not a minister, you're not a justice, you're not a president, you're not in any of these high-ranking positions that we have in our country, but you have an entire convoy following you? What is that protection for? Why do you need it? So there are so many questions that...
Thank you. And recently, even people in the private sector have started adopting convoys for themselves. So I think it's something. Elizabeth, your view on these expenditures?
I think the expenditures to some extent are somewhat unnecessary. Yes, they might need the convoys. Yes, they might need all that money. But we need to know the little details of what exactly are they really spending on. Because if you look into the little tiny details of whatever they're spending on, it might amount to very many unnecessary things. I don't think they need such large amounts. Yes, they might need some funding, but not such extreme amounts.
If I allow you a little information, for example, the budget of the president, the office of the president, among other things, has 40 billion shillings captured for presidential parties. In a country where you struggle to have medicine in hospitals, in a country where you do not have good roads, in a country where teachers are paid or teachers little pennies, in a country where intern doctors had close to 2-3 years not being deployed, and even when they were deployed, they are not being paid on time. Is that reasonable?
I would say it's not reasonable, but still, we talked about morality earlier on. Even if we said, okay, let us increase the amounts of money that are going down to all these other things, education, health, we realize that this money also passes through other hands of people who are not really any different, people who still want to keep some money. If I give you 100 million that you go and deliver it to this sector for medicine, for maybe renovation of a hospital, someone else will probably pick 20 and be like, oh, this is my money, put it on my pocket, send the 80. The 80 will not reach as a whole 80, it will still reach as probably a 60. So morality in this country has become a big issue. Even if we say, let us allocate more money to these important sectors, health, education, let us maybe increase the budget for roads, still that money will not reach. Let me give you a proper example. Where we stay, there's that road, it's called the Riham Road, the one that comes from Kawempe going up to Lusanda Chitezi. That road was given to 2 different contractors, one Sterling and the other, what is their name? I've really forgotten them. It is a Ugandan company. But we like to say these people just they used it as a place to just eat money. The path that was given to Sterling is properly done, very well paved. But this other path that was given to the Ugandan company, half of it is tarmac, the other is just full of potholes.
And we've seen instances where you have companies in this country that allegedly belong to people in government. These are not companies with capacity to do this kind of work, but because this person is privy to information that, oh, there is going to be money taken in this field, he creates an alien company is given money, and before you know it, nothing is done and the money is gone. Could it be the case?
It is a perfect example. for that.
Thank you. Kityo, these
Yes.
expenditures briefly.
Well, first of all, before we get so radical on our leaders, I would like to point out that money is a very critical aspect. And money is one of the greatest evils of the world. So, as Liz pointed out, that money is something very crucial. To some, it is a uniform measure of success. And when you're put there in the position and you're given such monies, you have to be really so careful and have to be a person of such a high moral character to withstand all those temptations that come along with such monies. That's why you realize that a recent move by the parliament, Honorable Ramadan Gobi, tried to move a motion to reduce some of the expenditures of the parliament. And it was made by total opposition. You realize that these people are in the money, in the center of money. And it is hard for them to make proper choice, upright choices. But like we said, these people are leaders. And these safeguards of transparency, accountability, should aid them to help them like see the right path to take. But when they are in the center of the money, it becomes a little hard for them to make the choice. They don't know. They lose their moral character. And that is why a person needs to be so much aligned with God or Allah, whichever person you believe in, to make sure that you're moving in the right path. Because truly, money is a big temptation. And it is hard to withstand such temptations that come along with it.
Thank you so much. Hard to withstand such temptations. But there are people that have withstood, these challenges. One of the things that come out when you say that is, in 2009, there was a challenge, a related challenge in the United Kingdom. What they did, I think they called it the Open Gate Scandal. Members of Parliament were chewing money luxuriously the way they wanted. And what the people at that end did, they introduced an independent body to be in charge of the financing of Parliament. They introduced something called the Independent Parliamentary Standards Commission. And this commission is in charge of, one, to budget for Parliament, follow up on the budgeting, whether the budgeting is actually implemented well, and follow up on which MP is supposed to be paid what and when, and did they actually work in the effect of that payment. Do you think, briefly in your view, and I need your view, the three of you, do you think we need such a commission in this country?
Okay, now such a commission like the one in England can sort of be equivalent to what we have here as the anti-corruption unit. And these bodies, in the UK, it might have worked. But when you come here in Uganda, that's why I say that leadership, the helm of leadership is so important. Because having a unit called the anti-corruption unit that we have here in Uganda that's supposed to check all those different, I would expect that right now would be its busiest time. We would already have people in trial in court, we would already have a sort of accountability for every MP, for speaker should already have presented a document about every asset that she has. This would be the mandate of the anti-corruption unit, but we do not have. It is the most silent during this time. I have never even had anything coming from that direction. So when you have a leadership that puts in place systems, and mind you, the anti-corruption unit is highly funded, but in a time where it needs to actually step up, where we need to see it come through, we have not had anything from it.
You see, we crucify some of these agencies. But for example, we have the office of the IGG, we have the State House Anti-Corruption Unit, we have the Investors Protection Unit, you have in the CID of police, you have a specific wing for corruption. You go to Parliament, you have committees, the Public Accounts Committees, about 4 or 5 of them. But when you look at all these, at some point, they must go to Parliament either for their budget or approval of the people appointed to be on those particular institutions. How do they stand in the face of the person that either approves their budget or approves the appointment to say, oh, we cannot allow this?
I'll still drawing your attention to the fact that, and thank you so much for giving us these examples, because there are really many that are supposed to act as those checks for corruption and embezzlement. But what are we getting? We talk of an independent body. We already have so many bodies, and we are trying to say, oh, we need an independent body that is not party to parliament or these other institutions. But we will let you know that even if you're to put up that body, with the same leadership that we have here in Uganda, the story will be no different. You will find that the member of parliament, the speaker of parliament, the president, whoever holds those positions, they will try to then interfere with the decisions that this independent body then makes. So
Therefore,
even
our
when you
challenge
have,
is leadership.
yes, it is. Because
Wow.
these bodies will not make anything different. We already have many examples that have failed. What will be so unique about this new body?
Wow. Thank you. I want to come to you. So we will talk about very many challenges, and indeed the challenges are very many. But there must be a solution at some point. I want to start with you, Elizabeth. What are some of the solutions that then we can have the political parties, the conflicts, the failure to manage monies and expenditures, the failure to manage emotions in political parties, modes of communication in political parties, ideas and ideological differences, failure to manage these? How do we correct some of these mistakes?
I think, let me start with the political parties and the conflicts that they have within themselves. I think it all has to go back to, we need to go back to the table, to the drawing table, and agree or disagree on some things before we can do anything else. Because it will all start with yourselves, the leaders, before it can go to anyone else. So they need to first go back to the drawing table. And for the expenditures, I think the first thing we need is, I think, to sort of tighten the system and put a very extremely impassable sort of system to really navigate. Because at the end of the day, we all know how to doctor things. Like there's that case of, it's a banking case. They used to go and check on Crane Bank and be like, hey, everything is looking all nice and good. But then how did it all just crumble out of nowhere? We know how to doctor things. But then we need people who can, you know, people who are properly trained to like do that auditing. We need to have proper accountability so that we see how exactly these expenditures are coming down to this, how everything is being done, because at the end of the day, we shall need to have a clear picture to know which direction to take as a country.
Thank you. Wilson. Sorry, Martin.
Thank you. Like from the aggregate of the discussions we've been having from Liz and Nkalubo, it basically goes down to the leaders themselves. The change should start with the leaders themselves. We have the institutions, like you've pointed out. We have the IGG, we have the Anti-Corruption Division in the High Court. All those institutions are available, but they are incapacitated. Previously also, the IGG herself came out and rightly said that I'm incapacitated, whereas I'm seeing whatever is going on, but I cannot make a move. And these people who are under the Uganda Parliament exhibition went ahead to even draft for her various preliminary documents from where she should start from, because they are telling her, start from here. In case you may be incapacitated, start from here. So all these institutions will be rendered useless if at all the leaders themselves don't effect the change within themselves. If they cannot feel for the local leader or the local citizen who's down in the village, who cannot even have access to clean water because of no water services in the district, then this leader cannot change.
You know, recently there was an update to the NRM register. And what came out for me is you could see big minister, a member of parliament, people in big positions in government, and they're down in the villages. Maybe registration is happening at a school, and you look at the structures at the school where the NRM office is temporarily placed, or in the trading center. You look at the citizens that have come to welcome this minister, you know, and you're like, oh, do these people still have that vacuum of empathy? It was terrible, and they did nothing, and they did not care. And they're actually jubilant, and they went on to register and left. and they might never go back for the next 2-3 years until the election comes in. Yes, Nkalubo. Solutions, recommendations, how do we get out of here?
I would like to let our government and our leaders know that we are on a sitting time bomb. Anytime this bomb is about to elapse, Ugandans are about to arise, and the leaders and government should know this. The populace is full of sentiments that they are hurting, that there needs to be a change, and this is not even just for the layman, but even where we see land people coming up and opposing this, we know that it's just a matter of time. There is something that is going to be aroused within our people, and we will not like where the direction will go. So this is a call to our leaders, because I am sure they know the right thing to do, and I am sure they know the direction to take. But these are difficult steps that they have to be able, and difficult positions that they have to be able to take so as to change the direction of the status quo today. There needs to be a shift, a deliberate shift in the way things are done. They know what is supposed to be done, but somehow they have adamantly stayed to the way they carry out things. But the truth is that if the status quo remains as it is, then there is going to be a bomb that is going to go off any time from now. And we don't want to see that happen to our country. So it's important and imperative that we start to take the right decisions and the right measures in the right direction.
Thank you. Indeed, we do not want to see that bomb take off in this country. Whoever has something to do, please do it. I want to draw you to something briefly. Let's do this in less than a minute. There is talk, and it's taken a very long time, of the national dialogue and reconciliation. And some of the things are expected to come out in these conversations. Do you think the national reconciliation and dialogue can be of great help in trying to streamline some of these challenges? Briefly. Just a yes or a no.
No.
I think we are needy at this point, and anything can work for us. Anything different from the old system.
Yes.
It can be a yes or it can be a no. It
Wow.
can either go a long way or it can do nothing at all.
Thank you, gentlemen and ladies. Our time is really fast spent. It's been an amazing conversation, and as we come to the end, I will give a minute to each of you to give your final remarks as we get out of here. I'll start with you.
In my view, I think I would.
Most of the political parties,
Most
very
of the
important,
political
because
parties.
these are important drivers of the democracy we talk about.
I think we need to go back to the drawing board as political parties and first look into ourselves and know if this is what we're really standing for. Is it what we are aiming at now? How far will it take us? Because the divisions will not help us. They're not helping anyone. They will not help them themselves. And get to know who is with us, who is not with us. How do we bring them back? How do we reconcile? How do we move forward?
Thank you.
Well, all the political parties out there, for example, mostly the opposition parties, they should know that you should know that you should not be drowned in matters that do not matter. Don't forget the overarching goal of why the opposition is in place. Don't forget the checks and balances. While you might have such internal disturbances and various storms that shake you, please don't go off the rails.
Thank you so much. And your parting shots, Council Nkalubo Oprah.
Thank you so much. I feel it's very important for all our political parties to go back and study their mandates. I know why they stood up as political parties in the first place. And I believe there's an element of service delivery to the people of Uganda, to every layman at the grassroots. And that should be something that should be center focused and something that all political parties should be working towards. Because at the end of the day, politics is not just a game, but it is for the good of all Ugandans, and all Ugandans should benefit and develop as a whole.
Thank you so much, Council Nkalubo Oprah, for those amazing views and for being with us here today. We thank you. Council Martin Kityo, thank you so much for being with us
Pleasure.
today and for the amazing views. And Council Elizabeth, thank you so much for the amazing views and for being with us here today. And to you, our viewers, thank you so much for being with us. Oh, this time it is the Inter-University Debates on Civic Space TV. Remember, this is made possible by the Center for Constitutional Governance. Special thanks to the people behind the machines, and I must brag that at Civic Space TV we have more ladies than gentlemen. As I speak, we have about 4 ladies in the room and 3 gentlemen, so really you should clap for us. We understood this game and we're excelling at it. One message before we leave, I want to say we pray for peace, we seek for peace, and we ask whoever can do something to create peace in the Democratic Republic of Congo, in the Gaza Strip, in the West Bank, in Ukraine, in Chad, in Libya, in Sudan, in Niger, in Burkina Faso, in Mali, and any other place that has conflict. Peace is the best solution, is the best driver to progress for humanity, because humanity must survive. It is the Inter-University Debates. We say good evening and may you have freedom always.